Hello and welcome to what's hopefully going to be the first of many videos I do on the Alienware Alpha. This one's going to be a Can I Play, so I'm basically looking at games which are specifically not listed in Steam as fully controller capable, but which can be played using just a 360 controller to both launch and play the game. And that's if you're using the Alienware Alpha and the Alienware UI, but there's also if you're using Steam Big Picture mode, you'll just need to get a third-party solution like XPad, so you can use a virtual mouse like is offered in the Alienware Alpha UI. So why have I chosen Trine? It's just the first game really that's on my list to go through. I've got a fair few, and hopefully going to be bringing out a few more videos. Everyone's looking at AAAs for the Alienware Alpha at the minute. They're looking at Far Cry 4, how it plays Crysis 3, Call of Duty, and I want to look a bit more at some of the older games, some of the gems that you might not have played before, either on PC or on the last gen consoles. And because they're not listed as controller compatible in Big Picture, you might be missing out. Okay, so as you can see, I'm using the 360 controller at the minute to control it, but let's wind back a bit. Let's go back to Steam Big Picture and see where we go from there. Okay, so whether you're launching into Steam Big Picture from your Alpha UI, from desktop mode, or you're doing it from your own computer and not on an Alienware Alpha, it doesn't make any difference for the game of Trine. You can do it all through a 360 controller, even though when you open it up, Steam's telling you it requires a keyboard and mouse. That's simply not the case. As an aside, if you go over to the workshop, there's a couple of things in the workshop. I've found that they don't work, and the only problem I have had trying to use just a controller is trying to open the mods. So I'd avoid trying to do that. Okay, so we go to launch the game, and we're going to get the warning of you require a keyboard and mouse. Do you wish to continue? I would go and click always, because that's going to mean this warning is not going to come up again, but just for the purposes of this video, in case I have to re-record it, I'm going to click yes this time, and that's going to take you to the Trine launch screen. Okay, so the great thing about the Trine launcher, which is why it's so infuriating it's not listed as fully controller compatible on Steam, is you can use it just using a 360 controller. You just use the analog stick and the controller buttons. You can change all the settings, you can change the language, you can change the resolution. It's all changeable just using the buttons. You've also got the hertz of your monitor, you can change that. I'd like to keep mine on 60. The one thing I would avoid is the mods button. That takes you to like a separate screen. That does require a virtual mouse, and as I've already said, the mods didn't work for me. I don't think you need it. Just keep the game as it is. You can change vertical sync on and off. You can also change the graphics detail from low all the way up to very high. It's perfectly fine on very high, on even on the base model, which I have. And then you've got the anti-aliasing options, and I'm going to show you some benchmarks of the different anti-aliasing options later on in this video. For just gameplay options, I like to keep it on just on medium with vertical sync on. That's because I get a little bit of screen tear on my screen that I'm using on my TV, so I need to go back and change the settings to put it on to medium. That works for me. All the other settings are very playable. It just depends. I hate screen tear, so I need to get rid of it before I start the game. So once you're in game, you can just use the 360 pad to move around, either the D-pad or just use the analog stick. Either of them work, and then it's just a simple A button tap to go into one of the menus, and a B to get back out again, as you can see from the return. You've got 5 different save slots. You can choose a save slot, so you can have 5 different games going on at any one time. And you can change the difficulty on any of them from easy all the way through to hard. There's also a hardcore mode I've never tried, but you can turn that on as well. It's all changeable using the 360 controller. If you just go back into the main menu, you've obviously got multiplayer. I've used in the multiplayer, but it's all there, all usable. The reason I'm just saying this is there are a couple of problems. If you don't open achievements, it takes you to the Steam page, and that causes a few issues. So I wouldn't do that in game. If you go into settings, yeah, you can change all the settings in there. Language settings you can change here, as you can change in the launcher. Visual settings is one. If you want to, for whatever reason, change the FPS cap, you will need a keyboard, because it needs you to manually enter the number to do that. So that's one thing just to be aware of. In terms of the other menus, I mean, just go through here, but I mean, I don't think anything really matters. The only thing is controls, actually. If you go on to configure controls, it says you must use a mouse to navigate the menu, so not difficult in the alpha. You just enable your virtual mouse and you're in. You can do whatever you want to do in here, but I don't think you really need anything. It just works, so you shouldn't have a reason to go in there. In terms of anything else, I don't think you really need to go in there. Controls just has mouse sensitivity, not going to be using that. Gamepad sensitivity. You can turn the controller vibration on and off, and there's settings for input lag. You've also got other options. You've got a save slot, and you've got networking, so it's just another way of getting to the save slot from what we had earlier. And your network settings is obviously just, it's got your network bandwidth and whether to auto adjust it or not. Brilliant. So let's go into the game. Okay, one thing to note is just all of the videos, for some reason, they all play at 30 FPS, even if you're playing it much higher than that. But I'm not going to subject you to the videos. If you just press A twice, it'll skip through them, and it loads pretty quick even on the base model. And again, you can just skip the intro to that. Once you're in the game, it's clearly quite usable using the 360 pad, and it's got the instructions showing you what to use in order to do different moves throughout the first couple of levels. It's a little bit different for myself, someone who played the game originally using a mouse and a keyboard. It takes a little bit of getting used to, but it's actually really playable using a controller, a 360 controller. I actually really enjoy it. I've got used to it, and it's just a really good game. You can see it's really smooth, because obviously it's V-synced and it's running otherwise way above 60 frames per second. Great. So it looks really good. I'm perfectly happy with it like this. This is the best that I have on my TV without getting any screen tear, which drives me mad. But what I'll do is after this I'll show a few different levels of detail. Okay, so once again in the cutscenes it's 30 frames per second, and you can once again skip through. You can either press the start button twice or it's the A button twice. I'm not sure if other buttons work, but they both definitely do. And something else that I thought was probably just worth showing for anybody that's interested in playing co-op, local co-op, is if you've got two 360 controllers and you've got them plugged in, the other player can press start, and you can play cooperatively on the same screen. Which, if you're looking for games to play local co-op, I've played the game before, but I'd quite like to play it again in local co-op. This allows you to do that. Here he is, and we can move around, and you can both play together if you've got two 360 controllers, and it's perfectly usable, and it's a really good game. It's definitely one that you can play with kids, or I'm planning on playing it with a wife actually. So time for a few benchmarks. You can skip through these. I'll put in the comments what time the different benchmarks are at. But starting off with high preset, which is FXAA plus 2 times SSAA. It has a bit of an impact. It was kind of steady, way over 60 before I went to this. It's now in the high 50s. It still looks good. It's still very playable. But just for me, it's just the extra isn't worth it. But you can make your own decision about that.
gentle moon smiled at the thief as she made her way towards the shrine of ancient treasure. Strangely, the protective charms around the shrine allowed her to enter unharmed.
I got it.
Okay, next we have the very high preset. That's 3 times SSAA. Now we're dropping down into the 40s. Still playable. If you really think it makes a difference, I can't see a difference to me. It doesn't really make a difference, and this causes massive screen tearing on my TV. But again, up to you. Have a look.
The gentle moon smiled at the thief as she made her way towards the shrine of ancient treasure. Strangely, the protective charms around the shrine.
Okay, and finally the game's ultra setting. No prizes for guessing. It's 1 up again on the SSAA. Not easy for me to say. Side, and this causes considerable really drops in frame rates. We're still getting 24 frames per second. It's still playable. If this is the sort of way you like to play, it's perfectly fine. It still looks pretty. Still think it looked pretty before, but it's definitely a really big impact. I mean, the thing you got to remember is, even though Trine's a few years old now, any game like this, Ultra, is really going to tax what is essentially a pretty mid-range GPU. Mid-range is being kind, it's on the lower end of the mid-range as well, but it's a good GPU, and this is what it's like on Ultra. Okay, so finally a bit of gameplay, just looking a bit at the first level. So if you haven't got a picture of what Trine is so far, a little bit of gameplay for you, so you can get an idea of whether it's a game you would like or enjoy. I'm going to thoroughly recommend it to anybody. I kind of feel if you don't like this game, you don't like games. It's beautiful, it plays really well, it's been really well designed. Maybe it's a little bit childish, but I wouldn't say it really is a bit childish. It's quite difficult in places. It definitely has a sort of childish overtone to its story, but that's kind of tongue-in-cheek. It's pretty difficult in places, and it's a really enjoyable game. I'm going to thoroughly recommend it. Keep watching, have a look through this video, see if it's for you. And that's pretty much it for me, to be honest. If you like this video, please like it, please subscribe, because I'm going to be doing some more. If you dislike it, it's a bit long. I think I've gone a bit over the top for my first video. Please leave some constructive criticism and dislike it. That's totally fine as well. There's also, I've started a Steam community. There's a few of us on Steam with alphas. If you want to join, head over there, the link's at the bottom. And yeah, enjoy.
Oh, what have I got myself into? I have to find a way to reverse the spell, to undo the magic. The Tomb of the Guardian and the Catacombs may have the answer, and it's not far away. Oh, that's just great.